Sunan Abu Dawud, Volume 1. Now this is just the English translation with explanatory notes by Professor Ahmad Hasan. And I have the other 2 volumes of these 3. But I do have access to the Arabic. Now, a bilingual set of the Arabic and the English, including this and 9 other sets, would be essential for any masajid that would be open to the public. Because you want the 4 big books of the Shia and the 4 Sahih of the Sunni. You might want some other books too that I'm not mentioning, but so there are some implications in only reading the English that we would not have if we looked at the Arabic. In Islam, sex is never referred to as dirty. The believer does not become defiled because they're not doing anything wrong. In the relations that they do have, because it's with their spouse and all that. Neither is a menstruating woman or a post-childbirth woman dirty. The word najis is not implied here. We do find in this set of historical narratives regarding Muhammad, more than other volumes, that a lot of what we find that's supposedly controversial about Islam is actually attributed to certain people that Muhammad knew, like the 2nd and 3rd of the Rashida Khulafa. I said that wrong. Umar and Uthman, and some of the traditions going through Muhammad that are said to start with Muhammad go through them. So that might be worth something considering. It's also important to note that in this volume, just as others, we find reference to things that people say that, oh, there's like one way to do it. But the fear prayer, the traveling prayer, and that sort of thing, we find several different options in here. We find the obvious universals of you pray for help in doing good, to not suffer, but that doesn't mean that you don't go through poverty and other hardships. It just means you do what's needed to not suffer. You want guidance in a task if it's good for your relationship with God and the world. You do pray to be removed from certain trials, if it's not, particularly if it's not good for me, may I be removed from the troubles of old age, of the and other such things. What specifically was in this volume, it varies. But as opposed to like the Bible, where we don't know, all we know is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were after Paul, 90 to 140. We don't really know anything about him. But see, we know a lot. There are things found in here that aren't in Bukhari and Muslim. There are certain things that will only be in one compilation. Now, there's hundreds of compilations, but see, there's one of the things that you learn in the Hadith literature is more than anything else, you find examples of what you could do. Now, you're going to find hundreds reading through Bukhari and Muslim and some and other sets of narratives that I didn't, read the whole book, read parts. And some, it's not a book. It's like there's like manuscripts and stuff you can gain access to, or gain secondhand access to is the better way to put it, where you find all sorts of narrations about walking around and eating and all this other stuff, and there's really just a few sayings buried amongst them, but it gives you examples of, the ablutions that you find in Surah 5, and the dry ablutions. Very simple process, the hands to the elbows, over the face and the head and over the feet. And whether you read the one verse the one way or the other verse the other way, it amounts to that. It's a very simple matter. But people have turned it into something very complex. And one of the things about studying these texts is that you're going to encounter that things aren't as strict as some of the conservatives are going to make it. There's more openness than those who will call themselves Salafa Salahin. But we certainly do want to take the example of the righteous predecessors, consider their interpretations, but, we want to, as I said with the last book that I brought out to comment on, I'm going from a fundamentalist approach that you go back to the text and you consider, what the actual case is and your interpretation of what you're going to do about that. That is the essence of fundamentalism. It's not, it's not intolerance or unable to think or some bit like that. We can bring consciousness into, we can bring God consciousness into any action. There are some remembrances that are better than others. We get reminded of those that are in the Quran. We get reminded of the material that it was around, the learning and practicing of Quran. So, and we do find that Muhammad was somebody that, if there was something that was revealed to him, it was like any Arab tradition, any personal taste, he'd lead it to the wayside. Pretty soon we'll be getting to one of those verses in the scheduled program. And the scheduled but remember, the no group of narrations is going to overturn what happened, what the Quran actually says. And, that's how he lived his life. And I'm going to make sure that the text appears of what's actually going to be going into in these. So yeah, you can listen to the Arabic, and if you have the Arabic, you can listen to this volume as you read it, and it's important to look at the original language when you can with a lot of stuff, because you get understanding that you would not have otherwise got. And sometimes, we don't just want a set of bullet points. I mean, I'm not saying that the Quran is insufficient or anything like that. I'm just saying it's easier when we hear a couple verses, here are some sayings that have to do with Judgment Day, predictions that have come true, predictions that haven't yet come true, but haven't been proven wrong. Some interesting side notes to various spiritual and other matters that we are thinking of. And so remember, a lot of these would have multiple narrations to them. But Sunan Abu Dawud is a smaller collection.